Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
Condolences pouring after the passing of former cabinet minister Fenton Nemore.
The Attorney General weighs in on the capital punishment debate.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina Dragovich. Topping news tonight, condolences continuing to pour in for the family of former cabinet minister Fenton Nemore, who died surrounded by loved ones last night following a years-long battle with colon cancer. Nemore's death comes just weeks after he told our news in his last television interview that he lived every day as his last. Kyle Joaquin reports.
I've spoken and been given a message, and that's my confidence in God. And I came back. They thought I was gone more than once. Hey.
That would turn out to be Fenton Nemore's last appearance on any media platform. He died 18 days later at his Hutchinson Road home, surrounded by family.
And the day after his passing, things are quite quiet at the place that Fenton Nemore called home. Just a few cars as family and friends come to offer their condolences.
Around 10 this morning, cars were lined off outside Nemore's home as family and friends showed up to offer condolences. His family, too grief-stricken to talk. Nemore spent the past 4 years of his life undergoing chemotherapy after being diagnosed with colon cancer. After 2 rounds of radiation and reconstructive surgery, he was declared cancer-free. However, he told our news earlier this month that his health problems persisted. But the husband and father of 4 lived a full life, ascending to a spot around the cabinet table in the last Ingram administration. His contributions spanning numerous activities from junior achievement to president of his fraternity's local chapter. Nemore is the last of the Coalition for Democratic Reform's old guard, as the late Dr. Bernard Nottage and Charles Maynard have both passed away. His contribution to the Free National Movement, a major standout in his career. Former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram in a statement wrote, "I was very pleased to welcome Fenton along with his fellow traveler Charles Maynard into the F&M following the dissolution of the CDR ahead of the 2007 general election. Fenton proved to be an excellent addition to my cabinet, in which he served as Minister of State in the Ministry of Public Works and later as Minister of State for the Environment." For F&M Chairman Carl Culmer, the friendship he shared with Nemore surpassed their political life and their dedication to the party.
I was by Fenton several times during his illness, and I took him to pick up his kids from QC. When he was in hospital, he would call me and let me know where he was, and I would go there, sit down, and talk with him. We would sit in the hospital and talk for hours.
He jokes about how not even a hospital bed could keep Nemore from getting a good joke in.
I laughed one afternoon I went to see him. He told his mom, you need to leave the room. Brother Culver and I got to talk some things we don't want you to hear. That's the kind of gentleman Fenton was,
Attorney General Carl Bethel served with Nemore in the last Ingram administration.
He was a fallen soldier. He was a fierce, passionate, committed F&M. He was an excellent minister in his day. He served honorably. He served well. He would be sorely missed.
I benefited a lot from his advice and his friendship. And I think that the country is a little worse off now with his loss.
But Nemore fought to the end. Even when doctors were ready to give up, he kept fighting. A true testament of his outlook on life.
With God's help, I'm going to survive, and I'm going to leave when God tells me. It has nothing to do with cancer or whatever. When God makes that decision, I'm ready to go.
For our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Former Labour and National Insurance Minister Shane Gibson attorneys today filed an application in the Supreme Court that seeks constitutional relief for what the defense called impermissible witness coaching, which it contends perverts the course of justice. Gibson is set to go to trial on bribery charges. According to the 3-page document filed in the Supreme Court this afternoon, impermissible witness training and coaching has taken place in this case among and/or involving the Anti-Corruption and Central Detective Detective Unit of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Mr. Garvin Gaskins, Mrs. Alicia Bowe, attorney for Jonathan Ash, and Assistant Superintendent Deborah Thompson, which training and coaching constitutes a perversion of justice and an abuse of power. According to the document, in the circumstances, the applicant cannot receive a fair trial as guaranteed by the Constitution. The defense is now seeking to have Gibson's voluntary bill of indictment quashed, as well as an order to stay the prosecution of the applicant, in addition to damages for breach of Gibson's constitutional rights. Gibson's attorney, Wayne Monroe, also informed the court that the prosecution has refused to provide the defense with requested material, including immunity agreements between the Attorney General and the prosecution's star witnesses, Jonathan Ash and Deborah Bastian, an order to freeze Ash's bank account, records from the National Recovery and Reconstruction Unit, which Gibson chaired back in 2016, and the police case diary, which Monroe noted should be public record. The matter will be heard in the Supreme Court before Chief Justice Stephen Isaacs on Monday, September 17th at 10 a.m. Well, take it to the people. That's the view of Attorney General Carl Bethel, QC, who says the issue of capital punishment is something that should be decided by the electorate. The Attorney General also telling reporters outside Cabinet that the government will address the death penalty issue. Jasmine Brown reports.
The AG says it's a complex issue that will need a complex approach, as he says his office is currently looking into capital punishment.
We as the people have to decide where we want to go on this issue. That would be, in my view, the preferable way to go. Let the Bahamian people decide, rather than a few unelected judges in the United Kingdom.
The UK-based Privy Council, which is the country's final court of appeal, ruled that the death penalty should be reserved for the worst of the worst. However, Bethel insisted that the Privy Council's standard on the death penalty can never be met. He added that the government is considering enacting constitutional changes to preserve capital punishment as an effective penalty under the law. He said it's a move that might require a referendum.
A lot of thought has been going into this question of capital punishment. Standard has been set by the Privy Council of the worst, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. There's always something worse than the worst. So it's a standard, in my view, that can never be met. We feel that there has to be some intervention, whether by statute or by constitutional amendment, to settle this issue.
Bethel's comments come 2 days after Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis reaffirmed his support for the resumption of hangings. The last hanging in the Bahamas was carried out in January 2000. Bethel pointed out that in order for capital punishment to be carried out, some changes have to be made. Asked if the Bahamian people can expect movement on the issue within this term, Bethel said that would be up to the electorate.
Well, it depends on who the Bahamian people want to determine their future on an issue like this. Do they want some judges in London to do it, or do they want to have a say on it? I think at the end of the day, that's going to be the question.
Now, in light of the Prime Minister's recent comments, Bethel says he has asked draftsmen in the AG's office to look into the matter. He says he is scheduled to meet with those draftsmen on Wednesday. Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands revealing today that the positions on the government's marijuana committee are quickly becoming the hottest ticket in town.
We have discussed it. The committee has not yet been formed. It is the hottest ticket in town. There are a lot of people that want to sit on that committee. They want to participate. They want to make their contributions to the debate.
Sands' comments come more than a week after Cabinet discussed the formation of the Marijuana Committee. The issue of whether marijuana ought to be decriminalized in the region was high on CARICOM's agenda. Following his trip to Jamaica, the Prime Minister told reporters the committee, once established, will present the findings of the CARICOM Regional Commission on Marijuana to the public. Sands says as the Minnis administration seeks to get a consensus on the issue over the next few months, he expects the conversation will only heat up.
Just about every Bahamian has weighed in on this now, and it should be an interesting conversation.
And the number of confirmed conch poisoning cases continues to rise. The health minister confirming today there are now 25 conch poisoning cases in New Providence.
As of the last update that we would have gotten, we can now confirm 25 clinical cases with laboratory confirmation, an additional 15 clinical cases that meet the definition, still awaiting finalization of their laboratory data. And so it could be as many as 40 clinical cases that would have presented to hospital.
The confirmed cases include patients at Doctors Hospital and Princess Margaret Hospital and are so far limited to New Providence. The outbreak was revealed on July 4th when officials said 4 cases stemmed from Potter's Key. SANS says with ocean temperatures rising, the presence of Vibrio is expected to intensify in Bahamian waters. The health minister reiterated that Vibrio can be easily prevented by vendors washing their conch supplies in fresh water.
To the vendors, you have to wash the conch in fresh water. To the patrons, I would say to make sure that if you consume raw conch, that you insist that it is washed in fresh water. And a good idea would be to make sure, particularly if you're at a stall where you can see the conch being prepared.
In other news, Attorney General Carl Bethel responding to Shantytown residents who intend to file a class action lawsuit against the government over plans to eradicate illegal communities across the Bahamas. Bethel says the courts are there and people have the right to use them. However, he stressed the process of class action lawsuits is tedious.
When I last weighed in on this matter was the suggestion that there was some possibility of some class action lawsuit, and I just made the point that our law on class action suits is very strenuous. It's very detailed. You have to have exactly the same interest in everybody. Now, someone who claims that they've been squatting on someone else's land for a period of time, if they meet the criteria, are of course able to go to court.
The AG's comments come weeks after Rights Bahamas legal director Fred Smith told the Tribune newspaper that 50 families have joined together to take legal action to block the government's first round of Shantytown evictions. Smith insisted the number of families that have signed on to bring legal action through a general constitutional motion is likely to swell. The process of eliminating shantytowns is the responsibility of the Shantytown Action Task Force formed in December 2017. The AG says the government is only trying to ensure that everyone living in the Bahamas follows the law.
We're not going to try and adjudicate individual people's rights. That's their right to do for themselves. Our job is to clean up the environment, to ensure that wherever there is building, just like with every other person in this country, there's building according to codes with appropriate permissions from appropriate technical officers in the Ministry of Public Works and in conformity with the building code.
Still to come on our news, $7.2 million set for school repairs. We have the breakdown when our news returns.